Doesn't it seem like parenting is mostly just telling kids how many more minutes they have of something? Let's talk about it. So today I want to do something a little out of the ordinary. I'm going to play a video for you of someone else teaching. I recently read 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and I definitely didn't love everything in the book, but I thought this chapter on parenting made a lot of sense.
There's a chapter in my book called Don't Let Your Children Do Anything That Makes You Dislike Them. And I'm pretty happy about this chapter, although I suspect it'll be rather controversial. And, you know, it's predicated first on the observation that many people hurt their children physically and psychologically. You know, because everyone gets sentimental about the relationship between parents and children, but that's especially in relationship to themselves, because they think, well, you know, of course I'm going to be a good parent. It's like, it's not so bloody obvious that you're going to be a good parent, you know. And so, and then what I see happening with people who don't know how to discipline their children is that the children run roughshod over them in their, let's call them hierarchical disputes, because children push for position in hierarchy. And they do that behaviorally to sort of feel out the contours of the social structure. So, you know, your kid will act perfectly fine at home, let's say, at the dinner table, but then you take them to a stranger's dinner table and all of a sudden they act out. And you think, what's up with you, you little monster? And what's up is that they're trying to figure out what the power structure is in the new, they don't know this, of course, but they're acting this out. They're trying to figure out if the same rules apply in this new situation as apply in the old situation. And they can't ask that, and they don't even know that they are rules exactly. They're regularities that they've learned. And so they'll test, and then you have to show them that, yeah, it's the same here. It's the same in this situation. But lots of parents are very uneasy with disciplining their children, partly because they believe that if you give a child infinite freedom, that's best for them, and that constraints are inappropriate, which is really just, well, I don't know what to say about that, except it's so untrue that it's very difficult to think of anything that's more untrue than that. But also the thing is if you let your children take advantage of you, if you have an ounce of spine and an ounce of aggression, which you do, especially if you don't admit it, then you will take revenge on your children. You know, so if they have a temper tantrum in a grocery store and embarrass you, which a child who's canny can do quite effectively, you know, because you wouldn't let them have that pack of crayons or a chocolate bar. And then, you know, you tell yourself it's okay, and that you still, you know, that really didn't make you that angry, and it's okay, but you're fuming inside. And then you go home, and half an hour later, maybe the child is doing some interesting little bit of work, maybe artwork or something, or does something good and comes up for a reward. It's like the probability that you're going to reward that child properly under those circumstances is zero. You're going to take the opportunity to take your revenge. And if you don't know that, then you're not much of a parent. And so part of the trick with kids is that if your child is doing something that makes you dislike them, that you have to figure out how to stop them from doing that and teach them how to do it properly. And you have to talk to your wife to make sure that you're not being too much of a monster, you know, and the same with her. But that discipline is partly what enables you to continue to like your child while you love them. And even more than that, you know, parents talk about fostering self-esteem and fostering creativity and all of that in their kids, and I think that's misbegotten. It's shallow for a variety of reasons. First, it's not that easy to foster creativity because it's rare, and self-esteem is a very badly defined concept, and mostly it's been used for harm, not good. What your job is as a parent is to help your child learn from between 2 years old and say 4 years old how to act in the world so that when people encounter them, people smile and are happy they're around. Because then, you know, I've seen kids who behave badly, and everywhere they go, people wear false smiles. And everywhere they go, people are relieved when they leave. And that means you think about that world from the child's perspective. Everyone's lying, and everyone hates them. That's their world. And then if you have your child, you know, capable of adhering to minimal social requirements, like maybe being able to sit at the table in a civilized manner for an hour and being grateful for being fed, let's say, and knowing how to share and knowing how to pay attention to adults, and not having that, you know, that kind of terrible cynicism and and arrogance that can develop even in a 4-year-old child who's always had his way, then they'll interact with adults in a manner that bring out the best in the adults. And everywhere they go, everyone smiles at them and pats them on the head, maybe even tells them useful and interesting things. And so the whole world opens up for them. And that's all a consequence of you having enough courage to admit to yourself that your child can do things that you don't like and that you will take it out on them if you don't straighten it out.
I don't know if Jordan Peterson is a Christian or not, but don't you think that his theory works really well with Proverbs 13:24? Those who spare the rod of discipline, what? Hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. So when we read that again, those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Could it be that the lack of discipline could actually lead the parents to hating their children? And then the second sentence says, those who love their children care enough to discipline them. In other words, in Peterson's thinking, if you care enough about your kids to make sure you don't start to dislike them, you'll help them learn healthy habits that discipline ultimately leads to. So stop here, answer the first 2 questions, and then push play. Okay, I'm really excited about this next part. If you're a young parent, you may want to grab something to take some notes on. A few months ago, we did a series on parenting, and we talked about the 5 stages of parenting. So age 0, birth to 1 is the survival year, we called it. We say that in that year, we're just surviving. We're just making sure that everyone eats and no one dies. And then there's the next stage. This is age 1 through 5. And these are the discipline years. And we'll talk more about discipline in a few minutes. But after that, if you do that well, you get to the training years. That's ages 5 through 12. And this is where we're really getting serious about the teaching why we are training what we're training and not just what they are to do and not to do. This is where the rules are really explained to them. And then age 12 through 18 are the coaching years. Now, this is when we take a step back. We're kind of standing on the sidelines, ready to yank them out of the game if they're out of line, but we're just letting them make mistakes, and we're not overly involved until they need us, but we're there for them when they do. And then if we do all those things really well, we get to the friendship years, ages 18 plus. And this is where the reward for our labor of love comes in. If you do all the other stages well, you get to enjoy the friendship years. And you can't skip a stage if you want your child to be your friend early. You have to wait until they're an adult for that to work. And a lot of people try to be friends with their young teenagers, but that robs them from the training and coaching that they need in earlier stages. But because I'm a little selfish, and this is the stage that I'm personally learning right now, today I'd like to spend a few minutes getting a little more specific about how to do the discipline years in those extremely important discipline years. And I'm not talking about the kinds of punishment that are okay or not. I'm not willing to get that controversial in this public of a setting. But I want today to talk talk about what are the things that we discipline for. And I think different types of discipline can work for different kids. It work because every kid is different. There's a lot of gray area there, but there's not much gray area on what do we discipline for. So I think we can hammer out today what are the things that we should discipline for. And I think there's 3 of them. I got this list from Sandra Stanley. The first one is disobedience. Disobedience, this is an obvious one. This is where consistency and congruency are so incredibly valuable in how we discipline. Consistency is the need for you to stick to the rules that you create. Don't let your kids talk you out of a rule that you created. The number 1 rule in my house growing up was don't tell mom or dad no. For some reason, this is one that they prioritized early. So for us, no became a 4-letter word in our house. If you ever told mom or dad no, just plan on being grounded for the rest of your life. And then the second key to enforcing obedience is congruency. Congruency is for the need for you and the other spouse or whoever else is helping to parent to be on the same page. If you're not on the same page, you create a good guy, bad guy scenario, and they will start using you against each other. And if you're not on the same page, when dad says no, they'll run to mom to try to get a yes. Then the second thing we discipline for is dishonesty. And this one is obvious too. Don't lie to your parents. Don't lie to your siblings. Don't lie to your teacher. Just don't lie, especially to God. And part of this is a follow-up to the congruency thing. If my parents ever found out that one of them said no and I ran to the other one to try to get a yes, that was considered dishonesty in our house. And my mom always says that the third one, number 3, disrespect, is the hardest one to teach, to discipline for. This is an attitude thing, and it comes naturally from pride. Ephesians 6:2-3 says, honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you, and you will have a long life on earth. And we don't just expect them to respect mom and dad. They should be expected to respect everyone. This is the honor that develops that blessing that it talked about. And we could talk all day about this one, but we don't have time. So we're going to have to stop here, answer the last 2 questions, and I'll see you Sunday in church.